Alright, so now I'm going to go over a brief introduction into vRay. And so I've picked a project that I've actually devised on my own. I designed a set of salt and pepper shakers here. We have the salt, which is based on sort of scientific molecular structure of salt, and then we have peppercorn, which is done with the Voronoi diagram, because as the peppercorns are dehydrated, they actually form these Voronoi patterns on their own, on their surfaces. So here's the design, and I would just so you guys get a sense of how we iterate things when we design things. I want to just show this to you because this is a pretty robust set of steps in here. And so devising and sizing the ergonomics and trying to prototype, so we're actually setting up assemblies in here for the final prototype, and then we're devising and sizing sphere, getting the Voronoi diagram constructed, then extracting that content and building out the fins for this thing, so we actually have this thing in here, then prototyping that and getting the fin sized so that we actually have a comfortable and appropriate set of geometries for this. And then we also can start to size and figure out the openings and apertures in here for that. So there's a lot of parameters that can start to be engaged when we actually dive into the design and trying to figuring out one simple thing as like a salt and pepper shaker. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn those off. But again, so we're in vRay here, and what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you guys how to apply materials and also how to set up your lighting systems with some of the presets that I've given you guys. So if we go into the materials tab here, I have loaded two separate materials in here. If I update this preview, you can see that this is white for the salt and then black for the pepper. And what we're going to do when we're doing that, we're just going to right click and hit load. And you can load the files that you guys have set up or downloaded from bizmats.com. And so you can see the material here, one of the guys that I downloaded. So what we'll do now is we will go ahead and hop over to, I think, to Rhino, and I don't need to load any more of these guys, but well, we'll just do this just so we can save a little car paint here. We can preview that, and you can see what that starts to look like. I actually edited this one. This was originally black, so diffuse controls the actual color of this. So if I come in here, say I want this to be gold, I can change this to a gold material pretty quickly and easily. I don't want that though, I want that to be white. So update that preview. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go ahead and if we right click on this material, we can just go ahead and apply material to selection. And we can, okay, and we have our black, right click. Apply material to selection. You'll note that you can apply the layers if you guys are organizing your stuff on layers for more complex models. Okay, once you've done that, that should go ahead and get this your materials set up, and so then we can go ahead and set up the outputs here. Now, if you hit the options button here, we can go ahead and this is where we click open. We can load our maps, and here you guys can see all of the global illumination stuff that I've given you guys. I'm just going to go ahead and load medium just so that we can come in here. So if I click on this, it goes in here, and that now has loaded the lighting system. And we can come in here and control some other details about this. The output size can be controlled. We can get the aspect ratio. Say you want the aspect ratio of your viewport, you can get that aspect ratio. We can also size this and then get the aspect ratio so we can get this bigger. So it's always going to be derived from the width here. So in this instance, it will override the viewport. I don't need a huge image for this, so I'm not going to go crazy with this. The other thing we can do, I'll just close this down for a second. At this point, we're basically ready to render here. So if we just come in and I'll just do a quick test. This is looking pretty good. When I organized my geometry, you'll note I did a couple of things. This is probably not the most ideal perspective because this is white. We could position this so that the black would actually be behind it. But I've also lifted this up slightly off the ground to give it sort of the illusion that it's floating. When I actually make these, there will probably be a little felt piece that will actually, in fact, hold that up off of there. But then it also gives me this the ability to simulate the shadows here that I want, whereas otherwise this would just land and be a continuous surface in here. And you don't have those kinds of edges that exist in reality, so it's important that you pay attention to that. Okay, so I'll orbit around. The other thing I can show you guys how to do in here is as we go through this, if we render this out, you'll note that the background here is going to also be white. And I've placed in here an infinite plane. Just cancel that by clicking on the Add Infinite Ground Plane. And so we can essentially, if we zoom way out, it goes on to the extents. And just by clicking that, it'll add that. And then I've locked it so I can't edit it. But what we'll do then is we will come in here, and if we want, under environment, the reflection and the background, you can come in here and say we want that to be like a gunmetal gray. And we come in here, and if we hit render, we can actually set that environmental background. So that becomes really nice if you guys want to say if you turn your ground plane into a white material. Actually, here, I'll just show you how this is useful. So we'll set this to black, and then I'm going to unlock this guy. I'm going to go under my materials here, right click on see materials. I'm just going to create a standard material here. I'm going to set the color as black as well. Let's update that preview. You can see that that's on there. Right click, apply that material to the selection. And we'll lock this in. Then we can come in here, and I'm just going to very quickly just toss a light in here. I'm not going to toss a sun. I'll just have this thing sort of hover over this, see what this does. Alright, so now what we can do is, if we hit render, we can take a look and see what happens. Alright, so if you really wanted to isolate this, these materials, you could start to generate renderings to that effect in here. And then the nice thing about this is once the materials are already mapped, you can come in here and edit them and say, that might have been a little bit too dark. So now when I hit render, we can come in here and see that. Okay. And you can see we're getting a pretty hard spotlight generated from that. So you might toss in a couple more lights to soften that, but and then or you can just use the normal lighting system to set that up. All right, but that's the basics of vRay here for you guys.